Well, good afternoon, everyone. Happy Wednesday, February 4th, I believe. Just Leah and I to start this. Scott is finishing up a committee meeting that several of us, not me, have been listening to this afternoon in the K-12 Education Budget Committee about hybrid remote learning. I'm going to have to drop out at some point. Scott may join us if the meeting finishes up or communicate with us if there's any news, but Leah and I are going to get started. So I think what I'll do, I'm going to talk about what happened in Senate Education today, and now I seem to have lost Leah. So I'm going to keep talking and see if anyone else joins us and tell you what I know and see who else might come in. Senate Education today voted to pass out Senate Bill 61. This is their version of the bill that would expand the current tax credit scholarship for private schools. A number of amendments were offered yesterday and today. None went on. So as it is, it changes the current program by expanding eligible students to include free lunch, reduced lunch price students instead of just free lunch. But also right now, the only students that can participate from a public school to get a scholarship supported by tax credits are those attending the 100 elementary schools, public elementary schools with the lowest test scores, generally very high poverty schools. The bill as it came out of committee would take that limitation off. So essentially, any free or reduced price lunch student currently attending a public school would be eligible to receive a scholarship, and the scholarships are encouraged by a 70% state tax credit for contributions to organizations that make these. The vote, there were 3 votes against it, but fairly overwhelming coming out of committee. Not terribly surprising. The House has an identical bill they have not taken action on, but we would expect that really any day now. And again, while several amendments have been discussed, the supporters are not apparently interested yet. So right now, that's where we are. So this is now the time to raise your concerns with the full Senate and ultimately perhaps the full House. And we've got a lot of resources to help you with that. The other brief thing I'll mention today before turning it over to Leah's experience with civic education and remote learning is that the Senate Ed Committee also had a hearing on Senate Bill 51, a bill that would put the foster care student education report card, if you will, which has been initiated this year by an executive order, would put that in state law. We testified in support of that bill as a way to help get attention and get resources focused on helping foster kids who tend to have very, very low educational outcomes and often to the detriment of the rest of their lives. No action on that. And tomorrow, the committee will be having a hearing on a bill to do basically some updating, not a lot of major policy changes in current state law around vision screening. Leah, you're back. Let's talk about what you did today in House Education and then the later committee this afternoon.
Well, as most people can relate, my internet dropped just as I was, getting on a Zoom call. So I'm back. And so today I testified in the House Education Committee against House Bill 2039. It's the bill that requires Kansas students to pass a civics test that's modeled after the test that is required to attain your U.S. citizenship if you are not a native-born American citizen. The bill was sponsored by Committee Chairman Steve Hubert. He feels very passionately about this topic. He ran same bill last year. We opposed the bill, and I'd like to note we were joined by our friends at USA Kansas in opposing the bill, not because we oppose better civic education or better participation by students in the civic and political process, but our opposition sprang from the fact that this required test is really somewhat redundant based on what is going on now in the state. We know that kids are required to pass U.S. history and U.S. government classes in order to graduate high school already. We also know that the state board and Kansas school districts across the state have really embraced the new vision for student success that involves less of a focus on a test score and more on being involved in your community, being a good citizen, being prepared that way, rather than just, did I pass the civics test? There was quite a bit of comment in the committee, the committee chair, as I said, is pretty passionate about it. Kansas Attorney General Derek Schmidt also appeared. He was a proponent of the bill. He says that, we need a basis from which we can all agree, a basis that we can all rely on as we, whether we're native born or naturalized citizens, as he put it. So that was kind of his take on it. There was also some testimony from a naturalized citizen from South Africa and a teacher in Representative Hubert's homeschool district, who talked quite a bit about making sure that kids are getting a non-biased and factual view of American history. So that was kind of the tenor of the hearing today, and the committee just announced that they are not going to do any further action on bills tomorrow, and I don't believe the rest of the week. Chair Hubert is planning to visit with the State Board of Education on this issue next week when they are in town for their monthly meeting. So, we pledge to try to work together with the state board, state legislature, to kind of accomplish those goals of improved civic education and civic engagement. But we said, it shouldn't be a legislative mandate, and it really should not be something that impinges on the state board's jurisdiction over education, which is another thing that this bill would do. So lots of comment, a fair amount of skepticism for those of us who appeared as opponents.
Leah, let me touch on a couple of things, because I may have to hop
Right.
off. We're kind of waiting for Scott. I just want to let people know a few things before you pick up about the late afternoon hearing. A lot of talk this week around the issue of unemployment fraud and the possible impact that could have on employers. I know Scott, who might join us later, listened to the House Commerce Committee this afternoon, while Leah and I were otherwise busy with the education committees. Tomorrow, the Appropriations Committee in the House has a hearing on a bill, I believe it's 2195, that would hold harmless, basically employers, including school districts and other public employers, basically against, if they've paid out fraudulent claims, they would be held harmless against that in their ratings going forward. We will be covering that bill. It appears positive. We know that the State Department of Labor is also struggling to get a handle on all of this, and it seems a major issue, but we do want you to know about that. We just also remind you that we learned today that Monday, the Senate Education Committee is going to have a budget hearing on the Department of Education budget. And this is only important because this is the money that basically funds the school finance formula, funds services to school districts, and funds the Gannon implementation. So if you're interested in oral or written testimony on topics in the department budget and on continuing the funding plan put in place, you would need to move pretty quickly to let the committee secretary know, committee assistant Cindy Rexler know, and sign up to do that and get your information in. And then also Monday afternoon, the K-12 Budget Committee is going to have a hearing on House Bill 2119. This is a more substantial private school aid bill that goes well beyond the bill that we were talking about earlier. A much different approach. We'll be testifying on that as well. We've been sending out information. We'll continue to do so. So, Leah, I am going to let you finish up your analysis. I will tune in later to see what you have to say, but I'm going to go off to another meeting I've got to do at 6. Thank you, everyone. We'll see you tomorrow afternoon.
Well, thanks, Mark. Scott's still monitoring the House K-12 Education Budget Committee. It has gone rather long tonight. I believe they're on their last conferee, so we'll keep you posted, and perhaps Scott will be able to join us. Scott and I have been following that committee meeting all afternoon. It started at 3:30, and it's billed as an informational hearing on remote and hybrid learning. The hearing has really turned into an opportunity for parents. Primarily, it seems to be parents from either the Johnson County area or some from the Wichita area to express their frustration with remote and hybrid learning. There was quite a bit of discussion about the mental health impacts on students of being in school either completely remotely or hybrid. There was discussion about whether school children are prone to infection by the virus or do they have serious cases. So there was a lot of agitation in the committee about getting kids back in the classroom full time. I would say some pretty passionate testimony, oral testimony from parents and also from some very articulate young people from some of our schools. The interesting thing about this committee hearing was that when we and other education advocates were asked if we could submit testimony about our school board and school district administrators and teachers' experience with hybrid and remote learning, we were advised by the committee chair and the committee assistant that we would only be allowed to submit written testimony. And so I think we all kind of thought that was just going to be what the hearing was going to be about, that maybe they would discuss written testimony. But it turned out that really the hearing has been given over. It started at 3:30. It may or may not be over at this point. It's been devoted to the oral testimony of folks who are unhappy with hybrid and remote learning. And I think all of us who cover education, those of us who have been board members, who are board members, those of you watching who might be administrators or teachers, I think we all share the frustration with the limits of remote and hybrid learning. Our KASB president, Lori Blake, submitted written testimony reminding the committee that school boards, school leaders, we all admit that remote and hybrid is not the optimum. We all want to see all of our kids in class every day, but individual district decisions have had to be made based on infection rates, based on consultation with local public health officials. And it's just been really, a no-win situation, especially those of you who are on school boards know you're always making someone mad. And boy, has this pandemic given folks a chance to be mad. So I guess the hearing is probably still going on. The chair was getting ready to wrap up and sort of give her committee instructions for the next couple of days. We do know that tomorrow the committee will hear House Bill 2119. That's Representative Sean Tarwater's bill to give at-risk students an education savings account, which would be an amount that would be in an account held by the state treasurer. And if parents would like to have that account set up, they would apply to the state treasurer. That account would be established in their student's name, and then they would be able to use that account to pay for either private school expenses or for homeschooling expenses. Now, as I think I mentioned, this hearing today was billed as an informational hearing, but then towards the end of the committee meeting, there was conversation between House Bill 2119 sponsor and a parent, really kind of, making it clear that a lot of the impetus behind this hearing was to kind of set the stage for tomorrow's hearing about taking funds away from public schools and transferring it to private schools or for homeschooling expenses. So we have been communicating with you all quite a bit about what you can do to oppose these types of bills. Obviously, Mark will be testifying against the bill on our behalf tomorrow at 3:30 in House K-12 Education Budget, and we will be monitoring that and live tweeting it tomorrow as that hearing happens. I don't see Scott able to be on. I believe he's probably still monitoring the hearing. So I think I'll go ahead and wrap up for tonight. I thank you all for hanging in with us tonight. It's been a very long day. Voucher bill on the move in the Senate, and most likely at least one on the move this week in House K-12, and a hearing on another one tomorrow. So House Bill 2068 is likely to be acted on at some point, and then 2119, the education savings account, which is like a voucher, will be at least heard tomorrow. So please stay tuned to our updates, both on Twitter and through our news briefs and on our website. And thanks for watching.